If you have watched any of my recent videos, you will know that I've been exclusively using a Micro Four Thirds camera system for my landscape photography. The camera which I've been using is a Panasonic GH5 Mark II, which strictly speaking is more geared towards video than photography. However, I have been pleased with the results I've been getting from it. When I purchased this camera, I always knew it was going to be a 6-week experiment to see if Micro Four Thirds could work for me as my primary landscape photography system. So now in this video I'm going to look back at my experiences of the last 6 weeks and make the final decision of whether Micro Four Thirds is good enough for my landscape photography. Hi guys, and welcome to another video. And as I said in the introduction, in today's video we're going to talk about my experiences of using this camera for the last 6 weeks. Now I'm going to cut to the chase. I've really enjoyed using Micro Four Thirds as my primary camera system. It's been really refreshing and quite creative for my photography, and I think that's a really good thing. However, it hasn't all been plain sailing, and there have been a few obstacles which I've had to try and work around. So really in this video I'm just going to talk for the last 6 weeks, and by the end of it let you know what I'm going to be doing going forward into 2024. So my first experience of actually using this camera was on a family walk in the local woodland, which you'll have seen on plenty of my videos, Hollywell Dean. And I quite enjoyed using it, but I came away a little bit disappointed with the results. Now I'm willing to say this is purely because it was my first shoot with it, but the light was gorgeous, so yeah, there is a degree, it could be user error. I wasn't really pushing the IBIS, so the ISO was perhaps going a little bit higher than I would have hoped. But yeah, it wasn't a positive start to it at all. But you know, I did get this one shot of shafts of light, and what it was, the kids were having a fire in the woodland. So all this smoke coming up and some shafts of light from the setting sun came through. And you know, I quite like that shot. But the very next day, I took it to Rothbury Terraces in Northumberland. And I actually shot a video there where I was talking about the camera and my reasoning behind why I actually got it. And again, I enjoyed the woodland shots. I thought the woodland shots came out nice. But when we came to the hills, especially when we had the gorgeous light, I felt like something was lacking in the final shots in the video. Now what I have done is I've gone back and I've reprocessed them, and you're looking at the reprocessed versions now, and I'm a lot happier. And I think my first hurdle was actually my post-processing technique. Because when I'm shooting full frame, I'm so used to essentially just getting the information and then working with the file and pushing it as much as I need to do. With Micro Four Thirds, I don't have that degree of latitude to be able to work it as much. So what I'm finding is I have to get these exposures as right in camera as possible, or else I'm sort of scuppered at the post-processing stage. Now luckily, while I was doing that video, I did bracket quite widely, so I did have the room of other shots that I could reprocess and work on to get the optimum file. But I think when I recorded that video, I think it went live a couple of days later, so I did work quite quick. And normally when I was using the Panasonic S5, that would be fine because I can process really quickly, and even when I'm using this little Sony which is recording me now. But yeah, with Micro Four Thirds I'm finding the post-processing is taking longer. It's not a deal breaker, and in some ways it makes me have to consider what I actually want to do with the file a little bit more. But yeah, at the start it was a real stumbling block, and it did really nearly make me consider abandoning the whole experiment. But I persevered. And the next shoot was when I did the photographing autumn woodland in black and white, which was down in North Yorkshire. And what I found straight away is I really like the monos from this camera. I think it does make a really nice black and white image. But of course, I was shooting raw files, so I did have the colour file. So what I did at the same time, even though I didn't share them with you, is I actually converted some of the shots to colour just to see how the colours were looking. And again, as you'll see from the one on the screen, initially I was a little bit disappointed because I felt like the file wasn't giving me enough to work with. But with a little bit more of considered post-processing, I was actually finding I was getting results I really liked. But you know, I don't know. Does it have the full frame punch? Is there such a thing as full frame punch? And I do wonder that. I do wonder if a lot of it's just the misconception in your head that because you're not shooting a full frame camera that your image quality isn't as good. And if I'm being honest, if I just look at the screen, it looks fine. And I have had a couple of prints done and the prints have looked nice. So I think some of my insecurities were put to bed a little bit with that shoot. But it did take a good few days going backwards and forwards on the post-process and really just trying to get the most of the file. So really I was still unconvinced at this point. And the next shoot didn't help, and that was the one when I went up the Cheviot Hills, when I attempted to actually walk to the top of the Cheviot. But I had to turn around because of the fog coming in. Now what I found is as I was actually walking up the hill in a blue sky situation with lovely autumn colours on the trees, I was really pleased with the results and I thought they looked lovely. And you know, I had absolutely no issues at all with the camera system at that point. I thought it was really nice. When the fog came in and my limited dynamic range of the sensors started to come into play, then I started to get a bit more concerned. Now, in hindsight, what I probably should have done is I probably should have bracketed and sort of created a HDR file. But I think this was the first point where I realised that I can't shoot a Micro Four Thirds camera the same as I shoot a full frame camera. There's just purely not enough information in the file to pull back or push without it starting to look a bit off. It's the only way of putting it, it looks a bit off. So I've worked a lot on these files and I've spent a good 2 or 3 weeks sort of playing and tweaking and trying to get them to a point of feeling like I'm there. And I think the reality is I needed to keep my eye on the histogram more to make sure I had more information there, because basically the clipped highlights, when they're clipped on full frame, I normally find I can pull it back a little bit, but when it's clipped on Micro Four Thirds, I'm pretty much scuppered. So it was a learning curve. A disappointing learning curve, but definitely a learning curve. So the next shoot was an interesting one, and for me it started to make me realise what I actually really liked about the system, and that is using it in a more creative way. Now if you remember, it was the macro photography video, and basically I bought a set of really cheap extension tubes which I fitted to the 12-45 f4 Pro Olympus lens and the Panasonic GH5 Mark II, and I had great fun shooting some near macro images, and it did really make me realise that this is what I like about Micro Four Thirds. It's all about the creative aspect of it. So I think in my head I now realise that I need to not look so much at the technical pixel peeping side of things, and I need to look more at the creative possibilities. You know, I'm talking the fact I can now carry smaller lenses, I can carry a couple of extension tubes with me and do macro. I can carry a couple of other specialist lenses and do other things. Everything's smaller, there's more room in my bag. Unfortunately, the camera's still big, and we'll come back to that one later because it is a bit of a problem. Yeah, from a creative point of view, it did make me realise that I actually really like Micro Four Thirds, so that I can put more stuff in my bag just in case, and I can be creative, and I think that's brilliant, and that's a real plus point, and it's going to be a recurring theme, I think, for the next couple of videos after that. So the next shoot, which is going to be quite ironic really, because I did just discuss how I basically should have kept more of an eye on the histogram when I was up the Cheviot Hills, is the one where I shot a video about basically checking your histogram. And I think this one was the benefit of hindsight. It was the benefit of hindsight of knowing that I didn't religiously check my histogram as much as I should have done when I was actually up the hills. And obviously the snow came unexpectedly, so I got to go and do some photography in the snow. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a background story on this shoot, because what actually happened was I was taking my lad to school and I got stuck in a huge traffic jam. And I managed to get him to school, but I thought, well, I'm going to get stuck in a huge traffic jam to go anywhere, or I can literally walk somewhere. So I had my camera bag in my car, which I do quite often just in case, with a tripod. And basically I dumped the car and I walked a couple of miles into Holywell Dean. Now, if I'd have been carrying full frame gear, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have bothered doing the walk, because I'd have thought, well, I might not get anything, but I just took the chance because my bag was really light. And I walked in and I shot that whole video, and yeah, I was quite pleased with the photos. I think the colours are looking nice. I think I could have done more with my composition. I think, if anything, the only problems with the photos from that shoot was not the camera, it was probably me. And I was probably rushing a little bit because I was a bit worried the snow was going to go, and it was the first snow of the year and I was getting all excited, as you do, you know. When snow comes, it's like being 5 again. But yeah, it was just ironic that I did a video about keeping your eye on the histogram when I'd messed it up before, really. But yeah, I was quite pleased. And again, I think the weight thing and the fact that using the small 35 to 100mm lenses while 70 to 200mm, I think, again, being such a small lens that was just in my bag, I think, again, it's the whole creative front of using Micro Four Thirds that I can pretty much leave everything in. I'm so used to full frame of taking out what I might need and what I don't, and you know, what I might need, what I will need, what I don't think I need, and going somewhere and finding out I basically needed what I've left at home. And that happened quite often. A classic example being the 75 to 300mm Panasonic S lens, which I think I've never even used on a video with you guys, and it's simply the fact that I never really took it out much. I ended up selling it because it used to sit in my bag all the time. So yeah, I'd rather have my stuff in my bag ready to go just in case than sitting in my bag at home doing nothing. And I'm a firm believer in that. So the next shoot was Saltburn by the Sea, and that was the long exposure shoot. Okay, it's long exposures. I've done long exposures on numerous cameras, and I wouldn't say the Panasonic GH5 Mark II handled it the best. You know, the autofocus when the light started dipping wasn't brilliant. I had to switch to manual focus, but you know what? I think I'd have to do that with virtually any camera system. But again, it was just a nice small compact system for walking around, and just, it did everything I wanted to do. It takes a nice black and white image. I was pleased with the final shot. I was particularly pleased with the final shot on the pier. I think that came out really nice. I think it's probably one of my favourite shots of the year, actually. So yeah, I was quite chuffed, and really, I think there wasn't much to report on that. The camera did everything I wanted it to do. It handled long exposures well. Brilliant. So the next one was another creative one, wasn't it? And this is the video you would have seen last week, and it's basically the pinhole lens one. We can't discuss image quality on this because, let's face it, the image quality was absolutely rubbish because the lens was absolutely rubbish. I enjoyed myself, and I got some shots which I thought were quite pleasant. But it just, to me, highlighted again, I can have this really small lens just thrown in my bag along with my extension tubes and the telephoto lens and my normal zoom, and the bag weighs nothing. And it's back to the creative side of Micro Four Thirds for me, that I can have all my gear in my bag and be able to walk around with it. And I think really it's kind of sealed the deal for me. That ultimately, I think Micro Four Thirds can be an incredibly creative system. You know, regardless of whether it's Panasonic or Olympus, it is just so flexible. There's so many lens options. There's so many small, lightweight things that you can throw in your bags. And I also have to say, it's actually quite cost effective. Because whilst if you're going to buy the really expensive 1.2 Pro lenses from Olympus, they will cost you quite a lot of money. A lot of the other lenses are actually really reasonably priced. So, you may have noticed I've got this sitting here, and I'm going to show you my Panasonic GH5 Mark II compared to this camera. And as you can probably see, size-wise, this is a chunky camera. And this is my big bugbear with it, is the size. It's a big camera. But I think, unfortunately, if I'm using Micro Four Thirds and I'm going to take a little bit of a hit on the image quality, which I think I am, and I don't think it's drastic, and I think you have to really pixel peep. But I think there's a slight hit on image quality. Nothing drastic, but a slight hit nevertheless. I'm finding it hard to justify taking a camera body which effectively is bigger than the full frame camera I'm recording with at the moment. And this is one of the biggest problems I've been having with the Micro Four Thirds system. That I've got the Sony A7C, which is a camera I adore that little camera that's recording me at the moment. The ironic thing is I don't use it much. I use it for video and I use it for sort of candids at weddings and stuff like that. And I just think it's a really nice camera. But it's not what I'm going to use for landscapes, because basically as soon as you start putting big lenses on it, it gets a bit comical. But this was the reverse, you know, this got a bit comical with the small lens on front of the big body. I don't know, it just, the camera body itself wasn't doing it for me. So what I've done very recently at the tail end of a Black Friday sale is I've picked up this, which is the Olympus, no it's not, I'll try again, sorry OM Systems. This is the OM Systems OM5. And I'll be honest, it doesn't feel as good as your hand, and this felt absolutely brilliant in your hand. It's not as well made, this thing's built like a tank. It hasn't got a joystick, this has got a joystick. But what it does have the benefit of is size. It's super small, you know, just look at the two bodies. Sideways view. It's a smaller body. And it also has a high res mode, which I really like. It has an insane IBIS. And so far, I've only used it on one shoot, which is, as you can see on the screen at the moment, was at the coast last week. What I like about it is the fact it's got things like focus bracketing and stacking and high res modes, the live ND mode, which I ironically have to say I haven't used yet. I have used the focus stacking mode, that worked quite nicely. And I was actually really pleased with the colours I was getting from it as well. But you know what, I've always liked Olympus colours. My first ever mirrorless camera was an Olympus, so I have a soft spot for Olympus. Even though this is an OM Systems camera, but you know exactly what I mean. So this is the way I'm going. I'm going with this little baby. And it is a baby, it's small. It'll hang off my bag easy when I walk around. And I'm going to continue in Micro Four Thirds, but will it be my main camera system? And I think the honest truth is it's probably going to be my main landscape for photography system. I think the results are really nice. You know, obviously I need to continue experimenting more. I think 6 weeks isn't enough to fully evaluate a whole system. But as I said earlier, what I'm liking about it is the creative side. I'm probably going to pick up the 40 to 150 f4 Pro lens, which isn't very big. That coupled with this 12 to 45 f4 Pro and this little body, extension tubes and the pinhole lens will probably do everything I need to do for the immediate future. And I'm just going to get out. I think basically I'm just going to go out and use this camera more. And what I will say in the defense of this camera is I actually used it for a couple of paid jobs. And I used it for a portrait shoot with on-camera flash. Worked lovely. I like having the joystick. I'm going to miss the joystick on that. And I also used it for a wedding video. And I think the video quality of this camera is beautiful. But perhaps that's to be expected, as it is really marketed as a video camera first of all. But sorry Panasonic, I love you, but you've gone. So 2024 will see me shooting this little baby more and more. And that's it guys. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you a happy new year and to thank you so much for your support over the last 12 months. Honestly, the last 12 months on this channel have been absolutely crazy. And your support has been absolutely brilliant. I started the year basically saying that if something didn't happen with the channel by Christmas, I was going to pack it all in. And I'm pleased to say it's happening. I think we've got nearly 1,400 subscribers now, which is amazes me, to be honest. I just feel so privileged that you actually want to watch. And I'm just hoping I'm making the content that you want to see. So do please feel free to drop any comments about any sort of videos you'd like to see, because I will definitely keep them in mind and see what I can do for you. But yeah, thank you once again for the support, and I hope you've had a brilliant Christmas. I wish you a happy new year, and if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, of course. And until next year, me and the little OM Systems OM5 would like to say thanks for watching. See you soon.